So I'm going to talk about university spin-out companies, critical junctures, and performance diagnostics. And my lecture will be divided in 4 parts: management theory and theoretical lens, critical junctures, performance diagnostics, and then I will summarize and conclude. Okay? The reason why I start with management theory and a theoretical lens is quite important, and I think it's important for you to understand what management theory is and what a theoretical lens is, because I assume most of you are molecular biologists or biologists, and in fact natural scientists, and the way management researchers explore social phenomena is quite different from the way, let's say, molecular biologists do experiments in the lab. The way they do that is by taking a theoretical lens. And what I mean by a theoretical lens is the following. Suppose you would like to explore a social phenomenon outside industry. Let's say you would like to explore a social phenomenon such as your family, parents and children. Then you can explore that social phenomenon through different lenses. You could take, let's say, the theoretical lens of, let's say, finance theory, which says how does the finance flows in a family. That would be one lens to look to that social phenomenon. Another way to look to that social phenomenon is, let's say, through a very well-known theory, which is social network theory. How do parents interact with their children? How does the relationship between a father and a son impacts upon the relationship between a mother and a girl? So there are different ways of exploring a social phenomenon, which in the end results in different views on the same topic, and therefore creates richness, as they say it in social sciences, richness about a specific phenomenon. So it's important to select a lens. So in fact, management theory, which is the theoretical lens that we use, attempts to explain and predict social phenomena as they occur in organizations from a well-defined perspective, as a set of concepts and the relationship between them proposed to explain the social phenomenon of interest. In order to do so, people use techniques, grounded theory approaches, case studies, action research, which is called management research. And management research is a systematic inquiry into social phenomena and organizations that increase our knowledge about organizations and individuals in these organizations. And the reason why I use this picture of a Formula One racing team is because one of my colleagues in the Cranfield School of Management specifically addresses Formula One racing teams in order to understand how these people interact to perform better vis-à-vis the other racing team. So this is a social phenomenon, Formula One racing team, which has been a topic of management research. So this management research was also used, or management research was also used over the past decades to discuss or to explore and to study academic spin-out or university spin-out companies. Okay? Now the perspective that I'm taking is, and every management researcher has his own pet theory. You know, my pet theory is the resource-based view of the firm, or resource-based theory. Other management researchers have another pet theory, which may be decision theory, which may be finance theory, which may be venture capital theory. So there are different theories, but my pet theory, so to speak, is resource-based view of the firm. And the resource-based theory was developed by Barney and Clark in 2007. And Barney and Clark asked the question, why do some firms persistently outperform others? Why is that? And think about it. If you have different companies in a population of firms, why do some firms actually persistently outperform other firms? And this is a question that Barney and Clark asked. In fact, the resource-based theory is part of a grander theory, which is a strategy theory. And Barney and Clark specifically asked that research question. Why do some firms persistently outperform other firms? Now, the answer that Barney and Clark offered was the following. The reason why some firms persistently outperform other firms is because they have a sustained competitive advantage. Now, this may seem a bit, how would I say, a bit obvious. If you have an advantage and you can sustain it and it is competitive, then of course you are all the time better. But we'll see that it's much more complicated than just these 3 words. Now, what does it mean? Because I assume that most of you are non-management research and non-management people, I think it's important for you to understand what a sustained competitive advantage is. First of all, what is an advantage? An advantage would be that I have a car to go to Dublin and you have a bike. That's an advantage, because if I go to Dublin and I take my car, I hopefully will be faster than you taking a bike, okay? So that's an advantage. Well, that's what I assume. In fact, I don't have a car, I have a bike. So I could take the opposite way. Okay, but that would be an advantage. It would be a competitive advantage if I would be faster in Dublin, have a contract with another company and make a profit. Then my advantage becomes competitive, because if you want to make a profit, you will not be able to make a profit because I have the car. This is a competitive advantage, okay? It is sustained in case that I can prevent you to buy a car. If you will never be able to buy a car, I will be in Dublin all the time, faster than you, and I will make the profit which you cannot make because you have the bike. So this is sustained competitive advantage in very simple terms, okay? Now let's take this concept of a sustained competitive advantage a bit more in detail. Some biotech firms, and the big biotech firms such as Genentech, are firms with a sustained competitive advantage. They started originally from an academic spin-out, university spin-out, that in many cases have a temporary sustainable firms. And I mean by that, they are sustainable as long as their IP exists. If the IP disappears, they are in the middle of competition, and probably if they have not done something with respect to their IP, they will disappear. So most university spin-outs have a temporary sustainability, while the big biotech, and most of them, the established firms, have a sustained competitive advantage. It's very, very difficult to make these companies disappear. Some of them do, but essentially it's quite difficult, and it's because of their sustained competitive advantage. Now I drew a horizontal line, and this is an oversimplification. I'm going to change this line in a minute, because it gives the impression that going from a sustainable firm with a temporary advantage to a firm which has a sustained competitive advantage is just a stepwise approach. You take one step and you take another step and still another step, and in the end you end up with a company which is, let's say, unbeatable, okay? But this is not the case, because it needs to pass a critical juncture. And a critical juncture in management theory is a complex problem that occurs at a point along a new high-tech ventures expansion, preventing it from achieving the transition from one development phase to the next. So a critical juncture is a problem. It's not simply a juncture. You need to solve the problem in order for your university spin-out or your temporary sustainable firm to become a firm which has sustained competitive advantage. And that is why I changed this slide to this one. So in fact, it's not a straight line, it's an uphill battle. Okay, it's not an easy job to go from a sustainable firm to a firm with sustained competitive advantage. Okay. Before I go into details with respect to university spin-outs, I would like to take this this resource-based theory a bit further, because it's very important for you to understand what I mean by this approach. Resource-based theory argues that the first thing that you need in order to become competitive is resources, and they should be valuable. And of course, this is again very obvious. If you have a firm and you have resources and they are valuable, well, of course they should be valuable. Otherwise, the company would not exist if they don't have resources which are valuable. But what Barney and Clark found, because Barney and Clark, that's important for you to know, Barney and Clark developed this theory based on empirical research. So these people went into companies and investigated and explored in these companies what is actually happening in these companies to persistently outperform the other companies. So they actually used these firms as laboratories. And this is in fact the result. So it's not a theoretical conception, it's really based on empirical research. So they found is that these firms have resources which are valuable. But on top of that, these resources are rare. It's not only valuable, they're also rare. For example, these resources are valuable because they have a number of scientists to do the innovation work. But at the same time, these resources are rare because some of them are considered star scientists. So this is already a step further. You have valuable resources, but now you have resources which are not only valuable, but they are rare. Okay? The next step is, these companies also have resources which are costly to imitate. And of course you could say, well, I'm going to hire that scientist, that star scientist from one company, I'm going to hire him and pay him a lot more money than the other company does, and now I have a valuable resource which is rare and is very difficult to imitate. That's true. That also applies for intellectual property, because if you have a resource which is valuable, some knowledge, which is rare and which is put in intellectual property, then of course you have resources which are difficult to imitate, unless you ask a lot of money. That's why it says they are costly to imitate. It may be very costly to hire a new scientist or a star scientist from another company. It may be very costly to acquire IP, okay? But the crux of the story is not necessarily the fact that these resources are valuable, rare, and costly to imitate. The crux of the story is the following. The fact is that these companies can put these resources into an organization such that if these companies lose that the resource becomes useless. Think about it. You have a star scientist in your organization, okay? He's valuable, he's rare, and he creates a lot of IP. Now you create an organization for that scientist such that if your competitor wants to hire him away from you, and you offer him a higher salary, that they take him out of the organization and he doesn't perform anymore. There's no IP. Another resource that you take out of a company, and the company buys some resource from your company, and they think or they assume now that this new resource that I've taken away from another company, I'm going to be successful. But they're not successful. And the reason is because the original organization has created such an architecture, a culture, a climate for these resources, that if you take them out of that organization, they become useless. That is why they have a sustained competitive advantage. Okay. Now, it means that if you have a university spin-out, okay, and you would like to become a firm with sustained competitive advantage, that is not going to be done tomorrow, okay? It takes a long, long time and management genius in order to create organizations that fix your resources so tightly to the organization that if you lose them, they become worthless. They only function in your own organization. Okay, so this is in effect resource-based theory. And I think you understand now why this is my pet theory, because it really makes organizations very strong, but it's also very difficult to create an architecture for your organization. Just think about it. What would be the ideal conditions for your star scientist not to leave you? Even if another company would be willing to give him, let's say, 50% premium above his salary. Think about it. One of the reasons why he would not be willing is that the other company is not offering him sufficient freedom or whatever, or an environment in which he or she is capable to give the utmost of his capabilities. Okay? So he'd rather stay with the first company, but of course in order to make sure that he stays with the first company, you have to make his life easy, between brackets. You have to make his life and the climate and the culture and the organization such that he simply does not want to leave your organization. This is organizational architecture. And I'll come back to that when I start talking about university spin-outs. Okay, so in fact, resource-based theory says that all these resources, these four resources, are a bundle of resources leading to capabilities, okay, capabilities that allow firms to enjoy sustained competitive advantage. Okay. Now the next step. This is a huge step. I mean, if we talk about organizational architecture, I'm not talking about spin-out with 5 or 6 people. I'm talking about big biotech with management, top management who is really capable to direct the organization internally such that their resources are kept internally. Okay. The difficulty with a university spin-out company, that is what is known in the literature, and it's Stinchcombe and Singh who define that term, the liability of newness. If you think about a university spin-out, everything is new. The technology is new, the market is potentially new, and also the entrepreneur, if he is the scientist who developed the technology, he is also new if he thinks about running a new company. Everything is new. Management, market, technology, the entrepreneur, background, everything is new. So that's the liability of the newness. And therefore, any university spin-out company needs to pass through a number of junctures. And one could define, or one can define, different junctures, but the literature, again, based on empirical research in university spin-outs, it's not a theoretical conception that I'm talking about, it's real life. Each of these university spin-out companies that has been researched over the past 10, 15 years or 20 years have to pass through 4 critical junctures. And the way I'm going to discuss these critical junctures with you is not by starting from the university spin-out, excuse me, from the research in the university, from the academic research. I'm not going to discuss the starting point of academic research, then take the next step going to the first critical juncture, then take the next. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to take the opposite route. I'm going to start from the temporary sustainable firm, which was a starting point for the top firm, meaning competitive sustained advantage. Okay, I'm going to start where we would like to end, meaning if some of you have a university spin-out or thinking about university spin-out, you think about, well, there are 2 ways to think about university spin-outs. I want to make a lot of money right away, do whatever I can, and then sell it. And that is also the way most venture capitalists think about these small companies. Just sell it quickly so that we can get the money before the company goes, as Americans say, belly up. The other way is that you could think about the actual endpoint that you are dreaming about. If you dream about, let's say, I've read the history of Genentech several times and many great books about how Genentech developed. These people did not think in terms of let's valorize our technology as soon as possible and get rich very quickly. That is not the way they thought. Of course, they were thinking about earning a lot of money, as any entrepreneur does. But the point is they were thinking about a major company. Okay? They were thinking about big biotech. Okay? How can we grow this company? And even if you go today to venture capitalists, you will very quickly, if you go to venture capitalists, you will very quickly be able to distinguish between those that argue, what is your company all about, and when are you going to sell it, or when are we going to sell it, because they will take the majority of the equity, or other venture capitalists who will say to you, well, you know, we are in with you for the long run. Okay? There's a completely different point of view from different venture capitalists. So I'm going to take where we would like to end up, not the top firm, but at least a firm that is sustainable on a temporary basis. This is already big work if you want to achieve this, okay? There's a lot of work to do. So the 4 critical junctures. So that is where we hopefully would end up, the firm with a sustained competitive advantage. This is an uphill battle that will take years, and in fact, that is a question: what prevents firms to enjoy sustained competitive advantage? This is Barney and Clark's research, and in fact, what we would like to achieve is this: our university spin-off, starting from academic research. That is what we would like to dream. The firm is temporarily, at least temporarily, sustainable. Okay? So the way to do that is we are going to ask a number of questions now. And these different questions, I'm going to first address these different junctures very quickly and set the scene, so to speak, and then I'm going to take each juncture separately. The first juncture is the question, because this is what we would like to achieve, a firm that is temporary, at least temporarily sustainable. What prevents firms to become sustainable? Okay? Think about it. What prevents a firm to become sustainable if you have a university spin-out? The answer is very simple. Because you have nothing except a good idea and some IP, maybe, not necessarily. The only thing that you need in order to become sustainable is a lot of money in the beginning. Okay, and I hope this is going to be the last time I'm going to refer to money, because as I said, talking about the university spin-out is not only about money. There are a lot of other things that needs to be taken into account except money. Even if you give 1 million euro or 5 million euro to a starting university spin-out, it's not because the one that received the 5 million euros that company is going to survive. Maybe it will live on a bit longer, but whether that is going to be the big biotech is another thing. That's not sure at all. So the question is, what prevents firms to become sustainable? As a first question. The answer is money, because people need to invest in your idea in order to come up with the potential to generate income. All right? You first need money to invest, and because there is money to invest, you can generate sales. Okay, we'll discuss this in a moment. The next step is, if you want to have money, this is very difficult. I mean, raising money, well, in fact, at this time it's changing. Biotech is increasingly catching the attention of venture capitalists in the United States. So it's changing dramatically over the past months because there's a lot of money available. But in order to get money, you need to have credibility. Now, what prevents firms to become credible? What prevents firms to become credible? Suppose that you are able to convince a venture capital that you are a credible company, that you are credible people, credible scientists. How do you generate credibility? And what do you need in order to generate credibility? It doesn't come from the sky. I mean, it doesn't fall down like rain. So you need credibility, and the reason, what you need in order to generate credibility is commitment. Now, this all may seem so obvious. Of course you need to become sustainable. Of course you need to be credible. Of course you need to be committed. That's absolutely true. But I'll come back to that when I discuss each of these topics, and you'll see that it's a bit more difficult than just thinking in terms of committed people. What this curve until now says, you need agents, stakeholders that are willing to become committed. You are committed, absolutely. You are committed because it's your idea. You think it's the greatest idea that was ever been invented, okay? You are committed. The question is, will you be able to hire scientists who say, I'm going to give you my job and commit myself to work with you, okay? First, credibility check. We'll discuss this later. And the last one is what prevents new opportunity recognition. And again, it's so obvious that it is almost obsolete to put on a slide. Of course, you need opportunity recognition. If you do not detect an opportunity, you don't have a university spin-out. Okay. Okay, so let's take the next step. I'm going to discuss these junctures. So I have 4 junctures: sustainability, credibility, opportunity recognition, and this is the first one, sustainability, the sustainability juncture. So what you see here is the step before the sustainability juncture, and this in fact is a sustainable firm. Okay, so this is the firm that at least temporarily has sustainability. What do you need in order to be sustainable? You need sales. You need to generate a momentum of sales. This is the top. But everybody realizes that even if you have sales momentum, and everybody is very happy if the first sales figures come in, everybody is very happy, but managers realize that when the first sales come in, eventually it will stop. This is the biotech product life cycle. It may stop very quickly. At one point, another company may come in at this stage and your cash flow stops immediately. So it may be gone very quickly. So it's good to have sales, but you first need to generate a sales momentum, which require resources. You need people who are willing to invest time and effort in order to increase the sales. Okay, so this is commitment. We'll come back to that later. Another one is resources to detect new opportunities, because a university spin-out in many cases is a one-trick pony. You have an idea, and everybody thinks this is the greatest idea, and we can earn a lot of money with this idea. But the point is, these great ideas are not sufficient on their own. What you need to have is a continuous stream of ideas. In order to do so, you need to create sales, because then you are in the middle of the market. You talk with your customers, you are in the middle of the market. This allows you to detect opportunities. This is what is called by Rogers gatekeeping. You have a gatekeeper who knows what is going on in the market. Okay? And two important resources need to be added on top of that, is the resources to increase the speed to market. Now this is a resource which is not the resource of your scientists. It is not the resource of your management, because the management is not, well, the management may have an idea on how to increase speed to market. But if you are in biotech, specifically, I don't know in IT, but if you are in biotech, understanding speed to market is a knowledge field that is specifically dedicated to a group of people who are, let's say, who in many cases work behind the screens. Within industry, people know where these people are. They know the speed to market intelligence and where they are in these companies. Okay? But that is exactly what you need, speed to market, because if this all of a sudden is not, let's say, 3 years, but comes back to 2 years with a much smaller income, then you need to be very quickly on the market with your new idea. So speed to market is essential as part of your sustainability. If you say, well, I have a new opportunity, but it's going to take me 15 years to get there, then you have no opportunity at all. Okay? So you need to be fast to the market. All this, resources that generate sales momentum, resources that detect new opportunities, and resources that are knowledgeable about going to the market very quickly, this should be integrated into your knowledge database in the organization. This, in fact, is the basis of what I showed you here. Excuse me. This is the basis of this organizational architecture. If you have this knowledge, excuse me again, if you have this knowledge, all this knowledge about your product, about the market, speed to market, sales momentum, if you have all this collaborated into one knowledge base, this in fact is the basis for your organizational architecture. This is something that you can buy. You can buy business development people, and they will do that even on their own basis. You can ask companies to detect new opportunities. You can buy people to think about speed to market, but how this is all going to be introduced into your organization such that if one of these people leave, they are useless outside your organization. This is all about this, resources that integrate knowledge. Okay? Again, we are in the sustainability, and I've not talked about money except about sales. Of course, this is about money, but I'm not talking about how much money you need for your spin-out. This is all about management expertise and management knowledge. Okay? So in fact, what is a sustainability juncture? It is a bundle of resources leading to capabilities that allow firms to become sustainable. Sales momentum, opportunity detection, speed to market, and integration of all that knowledge. Okay? Credibility juncture. Once we have been able to generate sales, we have been able to generate sales because at one point somebody was willing to offer you a lot of money, or not a lot of money, depends. But suppose they are willing to give you a lot of money in order to come up with marketing proposal, marketing tactics, whatever. Before you can do so, you need credibility. The first credibility, and I'll show when I will talk about the performance diagnostics, the first credibility is the credibility of the management and scientific team, who is well balanced and able to tackle the market. And I'm focusing not only scientific team, which is in many cases a disadvantage for spin-off companies because they lack the managerial expertise in that team. This is something that venture capitalists will look for. Okay, and I'll come back to that in a minute. A clear route to revenues and profitability, and I'm not talking about business plans. Everybody, and I don't want to be rude to any financial individual or financial expert, in fact, everybody can write a business plan. Everybody can write, because everybody is able to write a nice story. Okay? Everybody is able to think in terms of this is going to be, especially if you're absolutely concerned about your new technology, you're so blind for the market that you will create a business plan that is much over the top of what it actually is going to generate. Okay? So in fact, this clear route to revenues and profitability is really down to earth, show me, black and white, what are you going to do with this technology such that within the next 2 years, I, the venture capitalist, I'm going to see all my money back with the rent. Okay? So this is much more than a business plan. Technology and breadth, because this again, as you may have inferred in the meantime, if I show these slides, these two are more or less obvious. It becomes crucial if you turn clockwise. Okay? Technology, depth and breadth. If you have a good idea in university spin-out, is that your only idea? How much can this idea be explored further on its own to detect new opportunities? So that is what is called the technology depth and breadth. How much can this technology be increased, explored, expanded so that you have long-term options for commercialization? Now, venture capitalists who are interested in selling your firm after 2 years or 3 years with a lot of profit will probably not be interested in this part, because they say, well, as soon as we have the first income, we sell out the company to a big firm, or we sell the company to others, and we have our money back. This is, for the long-term venture capitalists, they will ask the question, is this a one-trick pony? This is extremely important, and it's called technology market readiness. Technology market readiness means the following. And I'll take an example. I'll take the Formac case. Formac is a small spin-out that develops mesoporous silica for drug delivery. Okay? And when in fact, what they use they use a technology from petrochemistry, silica for catalysis, and at one point that technology, that silica material was sent as a sample to the biopharmaceutical people. And biopharmaceutical people as well thought, well, why don't we add some drugs which are very insoluble on the silica and see what happens? And what they found out is that drugs which are absolutely insoluble in water, when you put them on silica and you drop it in water, the solubilization process of the drug increases. In fact, you found a solution to the insolubility of novel drugs, which is, let's say, an everyday problem in discovery in big pharma. So what these people did is they did some experiments and they showed proof of concept. So they showed different drugs with different types of silica, and all these silicas and all these drugs which were insoluble, they became solubilized. And that's what they thought, the scientists, the academic researchers, that is enough to go to the venture capital. When they went to the venture capital people, they said, well, let's talk about your proof of concept. And the first question that they asked was, you showed it worked in a lab. Does it work in dogs? And the answer is, well, we had one dog and it worked in dogs. And the next question was, does it work in humans? Because eventually that is what drugs are for. It's for human applications. Does it work in humans? They said, well, we don't know yet. Okay? And the next question was, will it be introducible into a big firm? In other words, what you have here, let's say, whatever, a teaspoon of silica, can you make this silica in larger volumes for a big firm to be interested in your case? And the answer was, no, we don't. So the venture capitalist said, well, why should I give you money? You have just an idea. You showed it works, well, that's perfect. You can publish it in whatever journal, but not with my money. So they said, what they said is, if you want to have my money, you will need to show that your proof of concept, in fact, is a proof of principle. Does it work in humans? And a proof of receptivity. If you have that silica, does that silica that is so worthwhile to solubilize insoluble drugs, does that silica actually, can that silica be manufactured at a scale that is immediately available for big pharma? Okay? And if it works, can it be introduced as a technology in the pharmaceutical development labs? So there is still a huge way to go from the in vitro testing up to the reception by big pharma. And that is, besides the proof of concept, is a proof of principle, which is a higher level higher, and the proof of receptivity of the technology. Okay? So credibility juncture, before you get any money, you need to show you're credible, because you show you have the right people. You can argue this is the way that is going to become profitable, which is much more than a business plan. I can use my technology a step further. In case of silica, this was delayed release approaches, not immediate release, but delayed release. So that would be a long-term option. And technology market readiness is absolutely important. If it, big pharma, well, the point is, and I think it's important for you also to know, what happened with these companies, with this little company, was the following. Of course, big pharma was interested. When they heard about Formac, they said, well, this is a great idea because we struggle with our insoluble drugs. So let's go to Formac. And Roche came over, and Bristol-Myers Squibb came over, and Pfizer came over, and they all came over. And of course, the management, which was then the founder of the company, said, I hit gold. But they didn't hit anything. The only thing that these companies wanted to know is, what is the value of your technology? I want to know. So they gave these companies a small number of their drugs, insoluble drugs, to see how it worked, and then they withdrew. Roche came in and they withdrew. Pfizer came in and they withdrew. Bristol-Myers came in and they withdrew. And the actual result was, well, we know Formac. That's enough. We know Formac. That's enough. No more than that. So that's a credibility juncture. So the credibility juncture is a bundle of resources leading to capabilities that introduce the technology in a market and make it or keep it profitable. Credibility. Commitment. The issue of commitment is the tension that exists between the need for a committed venture manager to develop the USO venture and the inability to find an individual with entrepreneurial capabilities. This has been topic of research by management scholars for a long, long time. Okay? And this is what we discuss now. Some of the management researchers, Bird, Kursik, see the dates. It's not very recent. Vohora was the most recent one, Ericsson. So the commitment juncture starts with what is known the lack of awareness of personal limitations. And let me go back to the Formac case. Okay? Many scientists are so overwhelmed by the prospects of their technology that because of their expertise knowledge in their field, they assume they also have expertise knowledge in a similar field that is outside, in an outside field, and therefore assume that they can handle the process on their own. This is what is known. This is not my terminology. It's known in the literature. It's lack of awareness of personal limitations. Another one is lack of risk tolerability. There is a huge difference. In fact, this is identified in the literature as ambiguity. And ambiguity means that it is very difficult to have an attitude as a scientist and at the same time the attitude as a pure commercial individual. These people exist. Okay? There are people who actually are capable to read Nature and at the same time the Financial Times or the Wall Street Journal. These people exist. These people are so well known in the venture capital world that they only have to take a step into their office and they have money. These people exist. I don't know whether there is an Irish individual with these capacities. I know 2 Belgians who have these capacities. They enter a venture capital office and they say, how much money do you need? It's as simple as that, because they can live with that ambiguity between science and scientific reasoning and knowledge about biomolecular sciences, and at the same time have a thorough insight in the market and know how the market functions. This is lack of risk tolerability, which is a problem. Lack of clarity. The reason why venture capitalists decide not to offer money is because what is offered to them is not absolutely clear. It's more of a dream, but it's not absolutely clear. So the decision that needs to be made leads to complexity, and because of the important complexity, it leads to decision uncertainty. Should we or should we not invest in this company? And this is a result of lack of clarity of the actual idea that is proposed. And then eventually lack of social capital. That is, if you decide, or if the scientist entrepreneur decides to look for an entrepreneur outside of the academic world, and then what is known as the lack of social capital, because academics are very well known within their areas of expertise. They know their own community, so to speak, but it's very difficult for them to reach out beyond their communities, okay? Because there's another language which is being spoken there, there's another attitude, there's another way of reasoning about the world. It's a completely different world. So the lack of social capital is one reason why this commitment is difficult to achieve. So the commitment juncture is the bundle of resources leading to capabilities that allow the identification of agents that become committed to the venture. So in fact, commitment, although it may seem very simple, of course I'm committed, it's my idea, this is not enough. It's committed not only from you, it's committed from a completely different group of people, okay? And then we come to the opportunity juncture. The opportunity juncture is let's say the first step starting from academic research. And the opportunity juncture starts with obviously a match between an unfulfilled market need and a solution that satisfies the need. The question, of course, that you need to ask, is this technology, does it fill a need? And probably it will. But does it fill a need that others have also filled? So the question is this a breakthrough detection? And is it something that others may have overlooked or have exactly the same idea as you have? So this is a match, but not necessarily a match that has been overlooked by others, or a match that has been overlooked by others. The third one is ability to recognize. And the ability to recognize is something very peculiar, and that is known as, at least at the firm level, known as absorptive capacities. And it is Venku Tamaran who actually explored, who asked the question, such as Barney and Clark asked the question, how are some firms capable to persistently outperform others? Venku Tamaran's question was, how is it that some people are capable to find the opportunity and others don't? And in fact, there it is. And some people don't just see it. And some people have may identify an idea that is making a market 10 years from now. What is the reason? And he didn't find the answer to that reason, unless what he found is that they use a skill, attitude, insight that are neither uniformly nor widely distributed, which means that only a number of people are actually capable of identifying an opportunity that will take the firm a long time into the future. Okay? So this is ability to recognize market potential that is not necessarily here and now, because finding a market gap here is, I mean, relatively easy. Finding a market gap that is going to appear in the next 5 years is much more difficult. And then again, it's social capital. Social capital as a driver to synthesize scientific knowledge with market knowledge. In fact, what Venku Tamaran said is that in order to train yourself in your ability to recognize market potential, you need to increase your social capital. Which means that you need to go outside the environment of your academic community and reach out to the community outside, the business community, to train yourself in order to train your ability to recognize, if that would be possible. You know, but it's of course, but that is theory, all right? Opportunity juncture. So in fact, the opportunity juncture is the bundle of resources leading to capabilities that correctly frame a commercial opportunity. Okay. There we are. This is what we would like to achieve, a firm that is sustainable. We know there is a sustainability juncture, there's a credibility juncture, and there are two other junctures. Opportunity juncture, which was the first. Now let me take you through some performance diagnostics. I hesitated at one point to share with you the topic on performance diagnostics, but the point is, they're not only diagnostics that assess the health status of a human being, they're also performance diagnostics that assess the health status of a university spin-out. And there are three performance diagnostics that are being used. The first one is a Davidson-Clouston diagnostic for assessment of spin-off performance. And I'm not going into detail, but you will find all the topics that I've referred to, you will find them back. What I discussed in the sustainability juncture, the credibility juncture, the opportunity and the commitment juncture, all these different topics reappear when the attempt is made to diagnose the health status of a university spin-out. So the Davidson-Clouston diagnostic introduces a formulation and clarification of a business idea, clarity, the development of a product, the definition of a market, the operational organization, are you building an organization or just doing some experiments? What is the group competence of the top management team? What is the commitment of the core group and the prime motivation of each actor? What are your customer relationships and what are other relationships? This is Davidson-Clouston. It was developed in 2003. The next one is the Bell-Mason diagnostic. And the Bell-Mason diagnostic has never been applied to biotech. The Bell-Mason diagnostic was developed in the early years when Apple and Dell and these Silicon Valley companies started to grow. Then Bell and Mason thought, well, it would be a good idea, because there's so many IT companies that see the light, it would be a good idea to generate a testing system, a performance diagnostic, to test all these small IT companies, to check whether the starting point is healthy and whether they remain healthy. And this, again, what you see here is a business plan. This is, again, was developed in 1991. At that time, everybody still believed in a business plan. So business plan, marketing and sales. This is about the market. This is about the top team, the CEO, the team, the board of directors. This is about money. In fact, I didn't talk about money. I just talked about things that are very far away from money. Okay? Operations and control, and technology and engineering, product and manufacturing. This was specifically developed for IT, and as you see, there is nothing that refers to intellectual property, because intellectual property in IT is very seldom used, because it's almost obsolete to use it. And the last one is the Custer-Butler diagnostic for assessment of spin-out performance. And this is actually I forgot to tell you, this surface, okay, this is what is called a performance surface. So if the whole radar graph is full, covered with red line, then you have ideal health status, so to speak. So the Custer-Butler diagnostic for assessment of spin-out performance includes technological and commercial risk, the level of your innovation, how will your product satisfy the market, market criteria, product extensions, longevity, that is what we discussed under the commitment juncture, product extensions, the same, entrepreneurial background, how strong is the team, and how will you protect, this is IP. Okay. This little graph, this performance surface, in fact, is an actual performance surface of a university spin-out with a need for 1.5 million euros or dollars cash, which was then trade sold 18 months later for 60 million euros. So this is a happy scientist, okay? It's a very happy scientist. And in fact, if you see the poor performance, so there must be in that discussion with the venture capital that drove those venture capitals to give them 1.5 million euros cash in order for the company to be sold at 60 million euros later on. So the scientist was very happy, venture capitalists were very happy. So okay, so I'm going to conclude, so there's time left for questions. So what did we see? We started with our humble position that we are not going to think in terms of firms which have a sustained competitive advantage, because that is big biotech, that is not what we are, that is beyond our reach, so to speak. We're thinking of a firm which is sustainable, at least temporary. This is already a great success, okay? What prevents a firm to become sustainability? That is growth opportunity. What prevents a firm to become credible? It's opportunity, profitability. And of course, all the factors that drive to that factor, okay? What prevents agents to become commitment? It's opportunity, clarity. It's not necessarily for commitment, it's not necessarily profitability, it's clarity of the message. And what prevents new opportunity recognition? It's absolutely market knowledge. Okay, so this is what, in fact, these are the 4 junctures that may lead academic research up an uphill battle up to a firm which is sustainable. This is a nutshell. This is in fact the outcome of many years of research by academics, management scholars on university spin-outs. And that is where I would like to end. Thank you.